What's going on YouTube? It is late January. It feels like a good time to do the second bracketology video of the year. This is probably going to be the second of 3 that I'll do. And they're fun to do. It's a fun time of the year. March Madness is in a month and a half. It's coming up quick, so we're going to get into this. Number 1 overall seed, 19-0, Arizona. I think they're the best team in the country. I think they can win it all. The only concern I have about them is that 4 of their 8 rotation players are freshmen, and it's harder to win with freshmen in modern college basketball. They beat the winner of Long Island and Norfolk State, and SMU, a team that they had a really good record in non-conference play, but they had a really easy schedule in non-conference play, and I honestly didn't think they looked great, but they've been playing really well in ACC conference play. I think they'll make the tournament. In Miami, Ohio, who is also 19-0, one of 3 unbeatens, they are one of the biggest storylines of the college basketball season, and they look really good. Their only tough game left on the schedule is February 2nd at Buffalo. If they win that, they might actually end the regular season undefeated. I think it's going to be really interesting to see where the committee puts them. I am taking SMU. I just think the matchup favors SMU here. But don't be surprised if Miami, Ohio goes on a run. I'm taking North Carolina to avoid the upset over High Point because Henry Vasar 7-1 going up against an undersized 5-0 Aquino. And Kansas over Belmont. Kansas, I don't really know where to put them. I put them as a 4 seed, but they're kind of a weird team. I thought they were a really good team going into conference play, and they started conference play sluggish, but since then they have looked really good. They blew out Iowa State, and hopefully Darren Peterson stays healthy, because that's really the bottom line. Clemson over Texas, Alabama over St. Thomas, a lot of 3-point shots in that game. St. Thomas, I think, is the best 14 seed. Their offense is fun to watch. NC State over Iowa, I think their defense bothers Bennett Sturts, and BYU over Wright State. My 4th 1 seed is Duke. I'm taking them over Mercer. The Southern Conference is kind of wide open this year, and I think Mercer is one of the best teams in that conference so far. And I had them winning it preseason. I had them winning it in my last bracketology, and I'm sticking with it because I think they're one of the best in the conference. And their 2 losses were close losses at East Tennessee State, at Furman. So those are 2 good losses to have. So I'm still confident in Mercer. And Villanova over UCLA, I think Villanova out-rebounds them. Yale over Arkansas, first big upset. Yale had a tough loss against Texas A&M last year in the tournament. They have that in their minds as they try to get revenge over a different SEC team. And I like slow-paced teams over fast-paced teams. And Louisville over McNeese. Louisville is also kind of a weird team who's been up and down. They've lost a couple tough games recently, but they've been without McKeel Brown. So I think if McKeel Brown comes back soon, which I think he will, I think Louisville will be fine. Texas A&M over St. John's, because since Houston is the 3 seed, the game is going to be somewhere in the South region, and that's a really tough trip for St. John's. Houston over Vermont. Vermont is always in the tournament. Georgia over St. Louis, but how about this season that St. Louis is having? Honestly, they are ranked for a reason. I think they are the best team in the Atlantic 10, and I think they're going to continue to prove it. I mean, for the longest time I thought it was VCU, but VCU has been slipping. Dayton has been slipping. George Mason is weird because of the whole Braden O'Connor situation. I think St. Louis is the best in the Atlantic 10, and watch out. Robbie Avila is a really fun player to watch. But in this matchup, I just think Georgia had an embarrassing first-round loss last year. They want to change that. They have a lot of returning players this year. And Gonzaga over Austin, PA. Now over here, my second number 1 seed is Michigan. They went from blowing everybody out to having a couple of close games against Penn State in their first loss of the season at home against Wisconsin. So they've been slipping a little bit, but they're still really good, let's be real. They beat the winner of Quinnipiac and Bethune-Cookman. I'm taking Missouri over Kentucky. Kentucky has had just a bad season. They're a good team, it's just they've gone through a ton of injuries. Now Jalen Lowe is out for the year. Hopefully Jaden Quinnens comes back soon, but it's just unfortunate. And in this match, I'm taking Missouri because Missouri is another team that had a tough loss in the tournament last year. They come back, they get to essentially run it back with a lot of returning players. and Tulsa over Florida. So the American Conference is a one-bid league. I think that's clear at this point. I don't think anyone has a chance in an at-large at this point. That makes it wide open, but Tulsa's the best in that conference. Florida's a great shot blocking team, but that's not going to do much against Tulsa's 11 threes a game. And Nebraska over UC San Diego. Auburn over Ohio State, Illinois over Cal Baptist. One of my best preseason takes so far is that I had Cal Baptist winning the WAC preseason. I had them as a 16 seed, though. They've been impressive. Wisconsin over Virginia because with Iowa State as a 2 seed, Wisconsin has the easier trip there. Virginia is one of the teams that's been impressive to me in conference play. And Iowa State over Troy. My third number 1 seed is UConn. No surprises there. They beat Navy. It would be really cool to see a military team make the tournament. Indiana over Baylor just because they're more experienced. Liberty upsets Texas Tech. Liberty, I think, is the best 12 seed, and they haven't gotten a tournament win since 2019 despite having a really good team after a really good team. I think they finally get their win this year in this era after going through an embarrassing blowout against an Oregon team that they feel like they could have had a chance against. And Vanderbilt over UNC Wilmington. How about the season that Vanderbilt is having? San Diego State to upset Tennessee because I think they would force a lot of turnovers in that game. But the Mountain West is kind of disappointing me this year. I think they are showing a little bit of a downfall from especially the last 2 years. And with Utah State struggling back-to-back 10-point losses, San Diego State losing to Grand Canyon last night, the Mountain West looks thin. It would not be shocking if the Mountain West was a one-bid league and that one bid was a 12 seed. That's how thin it's starting to look, and it's unfortunate. I think San Diego State is the best team in that conference, most likely to make the tournament, but Utah State, New Mexico, Boise State, Grand Canyon, I think those are 5 teams that have a legitimate chance at winning the Mountain West tournament. Michigan State over UT Martin. Seton Hall over St. Mary's because, again, with Purdue as the 2 seed, it's a much easier trip for Seton Hall. And Purdue over Portland State. I'm not sure why it cuts off there, but that's Portland State. Now to the second round, Arizona easily over SMU. Kansas over North Carolina. Both teams have great interior defenses, but that affects North Carolina more than it affects Kansas. Clemson upset over Alabama because, again, I like taking slow-paced teams over fast-paced teams. And BYU over NC State. Duke gets past Villanova. Louisville gets past Yale. Houston in an in-state rivalry gets past Texas A&M. And this is the closest 7-2 game for me here. It's really close. The reason I'm taking Gonzaga is because they have more seniors and senior year matters. Michigan over Missouri. Tulsa upsets Nebraska again. Nebraska is another team that's having an absolutely amazing season. You do not think about basketball when you think about Nebraska, but they are 19-0. They look really good. But in this matchup, Tulsa's a really good defensive rebounding team, and Nebraska's a bad offensive rebounding team. And then you have Illinois game past Auburn, Iowa State game past Wisconsin, Taman Lipsey guarding John Blackwell. The rest of the second round is chalk. UConn over Indiana. Vanderbilt continues their amazing season. Michigan State gets past San Diego State, and Purdue over Seton Hall. I'm taking Arizona over Kansas in a future Big 12 rivalry. I think that's a really fun game. I think it's a really close game. I think Kansas's adversity shows out a little bit and keeps it really close, but Arizona narrowly gets past them. And I'm taking BYU over Clemson and over Arizona because the other night, BYU's interior defense bothered Texas Tech, and so much of what Clemson and Arizona does on the offense is through the interior at the rim. And so I think BYU gives them troubles and makes it to the Final Four. I'm taking Louisville over Duke in an ACC rivalry because more of Duke's defense comes from the interior, but Louisville's guard play is amazing. And I'm taking Houston over Gonzaga purely because this is the South region. And I'm taking Louisville over Houston because I think their defense bothers Houston's guard play. Michigan over Tulsa, their Cinderella run ends. Illinois over Iowa State because Iowa State forces a lot of turnovers, but Illinois does not turn over a lot. And Illinois to mini upset Michigan to get to the Final Four. Michigan's defense, again, is really good in the interior, with Lindenberg, Damara, but Illinois has two stretch fives in the Vicic brothers, and they're going to make those guys play defense on the perimeter a lot, and so I think Illinois can find a way to beat them. UConn over Vanderbilt, Purdue over Michigan State. Both of those teams have great shot blockers, but that's going to affect Michigan State, and it's going to affect UConn more than it does Purdue. This is your final four: BYU, Louisville, Illinois, Purdue. Not a single one seed, a little bizarre, but it's happened before. And spoiler alert, my national champion pick is also bizarre. But anyways, I'm taking Louisville over BYU because BYU's interior defense up to this point has gotten them far, but Louisville's guard play is amazing. And I'm taking Purdue over Illinois in a Big Ten rematch. I think their experience comes through. And for the national championship, I'm taking Louisville to upset Purdue. A 4 seed makes it all the way. It would not be the first time, and not the last. I think their defense bothers Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer. Oscar Clough is a defensive anchor for Purdue, but he's guarding their Louisville's worst scorer. I think his last name is Frew. So an unusual champion pick. Probably not who I'm going to end up having when the bracket is actually out, but there have been unusual champions before, and people like to say it's really wide open this year. People have said Florida can win it all, Kansas can win it all, and Louisville is just one of those really good teams, so it's not impossible, and Rick Pitino's a great coach. So this is how the second edition of Bracketology looks. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully the rest of the college basketball season is fun. I'm sure it's going to be. Hopefully March Madness is fun, and see you next time.